Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they are new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, the past couple of days I have been mainly trying to keep up with the creators that we knew, doing the requests from comment sections, doing just general the series that we already discussed in the past. So we ended up having maybe some lower viewed videos as well, especially yesterday's. But it makes sense we didn't take a look at anything too popular because we were just focusing on keeping up with the creator that we know and not much more. But today we are going to be taking a look at some of the bigger episodes from shows that released that we haven't taken a look at yet. We're looking yet again. We're gonna stay around that 10,000 view range because, yeah, throughout the past week there's some stuff that I have kept on the back burner, but it's finally time to cover it. None of it's actually too old. It's all relatively recent releases. But we're starting off with a release from 6 days ago, because 6 days ago, BFAH had its first episode released, published by nicoguyy, a YouTube creator with 2,500 subscribers. As long as I'm saying, this is one of their first couple of I mean, not their first object show, but it's one of them. As far as I'm aware, it is titled Battle for a Hot Dog, to be specific, which shortens to BFAH. Let's see how it is gonna go. The video is 14 minutes long, 19,000 views in 6 days. It's pretty good. Let's watch it. Let's talk about it. Let's do all of that stuff that you know and love. Let's go. Alright, so I have just come back from watching BFAH 1 Invasion of Privacy, and what's an interesting little show. It is pretty good. It's good. I understand what's going on here. I understand why this has, received the hype a little bit, because it is solid. It is pretty well crafted, mainly from a casting perspective. Like, what this show has done better than the average show is that it has a pretty instantly memorable cast of characters where, like, every character is different, but they've got a thing going on where you can immediately attach to these characters like super quickly, because they're very distinct from one another, while also there not being an insane amount of them. It's a cast of what, 16 or no, 15, I think. So that's just like that, um which already makes for not too bad. Like, it's not a large cast, it's not too much, but every character is pretty smartly chosen here for this. So we start off here with the popping in from Earth. Actually, that's true, from some other planets that we see exist. It was a pretty fire little intro where we get to see them. Then, as usual, we have what every BFB inspired show must do, as is tradition, which is recreate the first scene from BFB, but do the switch up where you don't trip. That's what everybody does, and that's what we're doing here one more time. However, it makes sense. And then we get to see Masky. Masky is one of the more reasonable characters, I guess. Like, they're sort of a little bit more excited than some of the rest of the cast, but they seem to be a little bit more in the reasonable end. They're in the characters that are more like in the neutral perspective. But I like them. I see what's going on. They immediately are getting pretty excited over a rock wonder, which looks suspiciously like a yo-yo. Like, this proceeds to speak and stuff. But then there's a camera. This camera has an interesting way of movement. The camera fella, they're like they've got limbs, but they're relatively flaccid. You know, like the way that their legs are, they're kind of noodle. Like they don't really stand. They mostly just like shuffle, despite the fact that they have legs. It's pretty interesting. They're pretty sociable, a little bit more tired as well because of that. Um, then we have fluorite. Oh God, I don't remember your name. It's a rock. No, it's not. You're not called a fluorite. You're called something different. Oh no, bro, I don't remember. This is so sad. You're. Oh God, I don't know. It's just one of them. It's a rock. What are you called? Hold on. Let me look at the let me look at the intro so that I gain the information about who it is, and then we'll return back to what we were doing, which is talking about them. Chaurite. Okay, so it's not fluorite, it's chaurite. Um, Chaurite is the smart character, you know, the smart, very percentage based, very analytical, very like overthinky, the golf ball style character, you know, as you have it. So that's what Chaurite is. Then eventually we have Blender. Blender, meanwhile, is the I don't care archetype, you know, the character that just like, okay, hey, they're sure. You know, they're the sure character. They're the character that replies to anything with sure. But they're not exactly gonna go out of their way to do anything themselves. They're just gonna stand there, and what happens happens. You know. So yeah, they're doing that. Then we have bready, which has I think like peanut butter or chocolate spread on them. So they're a little bit more worried. Then there's Door. Door is the silent quote unquote character. They can only speak with their door handle, in the sense that they don't speak with the door handle, but they can move it around, shuffle it, but they can't necessarily speak with words. So that is what's going on with them. And then they were also hanging out with who? With Domino. Oh yeah, Domino ends up being the sort of overly talky character. They have a little bit of a outer worldly voice, in my opinion. They kind of sound like they're from a different dimension. They don't have a visible mouth. Their two eyes are the moving. I've always been a big fan of Domino's as a character because it's just an easy design that immediately is pretty cool and separates itself from a lot of the other designs. So having a domino in an object show, I absolutely believe is a good idea. If you're making an object show, I recommend the domino style character because it's just an easy design and instantaneously a winner. So absolutely recommend. And here seeing domino makes perfect sense. Then eventually we end up having the magnifying glass. Magnifying glass is the everyone else is dumb type character. It's a little bit of an interesting spin on it because magnifying glass doesn't because magnifying glass doesn't consider themselves, I believe, to be smarter than everyone else. Like they're not egotistical, they're just anti everyone else. You know, they're like the hater character. They're like, oh, everyone around me is dumb. My team is dumb. Nobody says my name right. Everybody's stupid. No, nobody's gonna do anything. Like that's you. You don't understand anything about technology, right? Just like in general, they're like that character. So I guess they're more the hater type character. I will say in this episode they have a point like 99% of the time. So fair, so fair enough to the magnifying glass. Then we have the pixel fella, which I mean, or green. Oh no, I think you're called green screen because you're a green like cube, but you're very small, so you look like a pixel. To be honest, because I think sometimes the average like the first color of a pixel is like green, but I mean usually it's black. But oh well. So that's a green pixel. They end up being the sort of what I don't know how to describe them, to be honest. Though that one I don't really know how to describe. They're sort of they seem to be one of the more reasonable characters. Absolutely, they're not a big fan of conflict. They're more so just relaxed. Jeffrey, in the meantime, speaks in the third person. Speaks not necessarily in riddle, but speaks a little bit more in like it's in these types of blank is blank. Blank likes blank. You know, like there's one thing here and one thing there. It's like there's a name, then a thing, and then a final statement. Like that type of sentence structuring. It's like Jeffrey loves life, or like Jeffrey thinks you are lying. Like there's an action at the end, and there's a person at the beginning. Right, that's like that type of sentence structuring that Jeffrey's doing, and they're also they're extremely tall, and therefore just end up as extremely mobile. So that's going on with Jeffrey. I like them. I also really like this chocolate cube, or Choco as it's called. They are the chocolate cube. They're cute. I love me a small little character that's hyperactive. I always love me those types of characters, and that is exactly what this fella is. Just sort of excited about everything. That's like the excited character. Like, yeah, let's go get him. You are my friend. Hey, yeah. So that's cool. You play hopscotch. So yeah, they're doing that. Alongside of a blank book, which is an interesting name. I guess just a book that is blank. There's nothing in the book. Which is it doesn't strike me as necessarily that interesting of a design, but I'm sure, nah, it's not that interesting. Blank book, it's kind of an excuse to make it not just say book. They got a blank book. Like, that's suspicious of character. But they seem to also play along, be more of the fun archetype. Banana Slice gets, I believe, like the least screen time in the episode. Generally, I cannot remember you much about Banana Slice here in this case. Yeah, no, I really can't. What the hell is Banana Slice do? I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to skip Banana Slice. Then there's a Plate, which always dies. That's the thing about Plate, because they're easy to break. But then they're kind of they're in the egotistical category of just going, I am so pretty, I am so shiny, nobody sees my beauty. Right. So that's what they are. But then they die all the time. So yeah. And then I think that's everybody. They end up ordering like a pizza. No, they end up ordering something from the sky to appreciate their beauty. They end up dying, and then the pizza drops by from the sky. And then we have our host, Pizza Guy. So first of all, immediately try. I'm not. I am so trying to not think of the YouTuber, because I swear to God, there's a YouTuber like BFLH or something. Like whoever made BFLH, I think, is like their main character is a pizza that looks so unbelievably similar. So I'm not trying to like compare one to another. But here you have our pizza host. So I think one of the weirdest things about this pizza host, right, is that the main thing about them that sort of strikes me a little bit off is that they are one of those alien type hosts. Like they say it themselves, they act the part by acting a little bit weirder than the rest, by doing murder when they can. But they do that. However, the thing that mainly separates this pizza from an algebraian is that they don't look different. That's the immediate thing that struck me off as a little bit weird, is that an algebraian immediately makes itself noticeable as a different design because they just act different. You can tell by their arm, their limbs, just the way they're drawn. But this pizza, if you told me that this pizza was a contestant, I would believe you. Like, that's kind of the thing about it. About object shows is that usually they have a very obviously distinct host than the contestant, right? Like, let's take the big ones. BFDI, right? It's the speaker box, which there's nothing like the speaker box around, right? They speak in completely different way, but like they're just a speaker box. Then in the same thing goes for BFDIA, right? It's just a bunch of speaker boxes usually. In BFB, it's 4 and X. They're so different, and then 2 is so different. Like they just look like a different species because they are a different species. And in II, you can argue that MePhone doesn't look that different. I would say that they get away with it because the cast of II isn't technological. I don't think there's a technological character in there until like Cammy, unless I'm forgetting somebody. But I believe like until Cammy in like season in like the later seasons, I believe that it ends up that there isn't really a technological light bulb's technological, but other than that, there isn't like a technological character, which means that the iPhone itself immediately stands out as this higher being because they have the capabilities of a smartphone, where the contestants, they're just a regular appliance, right? um which makes them stand out. But in this case, this pizza, the fact that this is a pizza alien just doesn't look different. And that's a stylistic choice. You can make it work. I would have personally put in something that can make him visually distinct as a host at a glass. It would also just make him look different than the YouTuber. But like, in general, that's what I would have done. However, I understand not doing it, but personally, I would have done it because you are a different alien. You do have more powers, but you don't look the part. You look exactly the same. The fact that you are the host and not Brady, it's just like, I don't know why is that different? Like, yeah. So they end up choosing for everybody to fight for a hot dog. And Domino dies a bunch of times because they're just hilariously annoying, like an elite tier of annoying. Um, I would say that as far as how they act, this pizza guy, it's a step down from an algebraian. They're like a bit more chilled. They're like a bit more relaxed. They're like a bit more, I don't know what we're doing, but they're a bit more trying to figure it out. So they're like a step down from an algebraian. However, they are very short-tempered, kind of like an algebraian, but they don't like lash out as much like a force screech would. So, all right. Then, by the way, we have a Nito Recovery Center. Interesting thing about the Nito Recovery Center, it says recover last the dead person, which I do find a little bit of a suspicious thing. It's a suspiciously titled button, I am going to say, because if you think about it, bro, recovery center, because last guy died implies that it recovers the last one to have died, which means that if just two people die at a time, wouldn't that button mean that the first one to die wouldn't get recovered? Because if you're recovering the last one to have died, whether they're alive or not, it would always be them to be the last one to have died, which means that if someone dies, they don't get recovered, and then somebody else dies after, that means that that person should just be dead. Like, that button should just not be capable of reviving them by the way that the wording is. So I'm not necessarily a big fan of the wording because I don't think that's what they mean. I think it's too big of a deal because multiple people are going to be dead at a time. I mean, in fact, they do it here where Plate and Domino are dead, but both of them get revived from the button. So I don't think that's like, it's a plot point, that what I'm saying. But the way that it's titled makes it seem like recover the last dead person. But like, the last dead person is, there could be more than one last dead person. I get that there's a recover all button. That's for, well, all. So, I'm not sure. Anyways, they end up forming teams. I believe they form 2 teams of 8, which is, wait, do they? Hold on. They end up forming 2 teams. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, what? Hold on. What are these teams? 6 and 7? Wait, I don't really understand this numbering system. How the hell does this work? I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. Okay, now I understood. It's 6 and 8, because there's 8 on the other team because there's the Domino is dead. So for some reason there's a split unevenly, but since Domino isn't present in the challenge, right? They are gone, disqualified, right? So that makes 7. But then the play gets destroyed, right? Because that's the point of the challenge, which makes it 6 and 6 for the purposes of the challenge. It's pretty good. Pretty good, subtle little writing. It gives off vibes of too convenient, but okay, sure. We'll go with that. So we then have our initial team, which is the Food Vloggers. A pretty good name, to be fair. For once, there's a pretty solid team name on an object show, right? And it's not like the joke is that it doesn't make any sense. where we have the camera, the magnifying glass, the chariot, the door, the Freddy, and the masky. I must say, I don't think that this team is exactly the most, um, you know, food y characters, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of incorrect, but look, we'll go with it. As far as the strength of the team, we've got some mind. The problem is that I'm mainly thinking that there's going to be a lot of disagreement on this team because we got Chara that's very, tactical, analytical, and usually you want to have a mind like that on the team because as much as they're annoying about it, they do still have plans that are going to help out the whole thing. Meanwhile, however, we do also have magnifying glass that's also very contrarian, very I don't like anybody else's ideas because I'm just better than them, I'm smarter, right? So that's gonna cause a little bit of havoc with the rest of them that are kind of just gonna have to pick and choose sides, and sometimes they'll side with you, sometimes they'll side with them. So it's not gonna be great, to be honest. But I guess we'll see. I mean, the other team is titled, well, blank. So that is a team blank because you know obviously Blender wasn't gonna be thinking of a name. It does somewhat like I think fit the nature of the team if you consider that we got Jeremy or whatever the sick figure was called, right? And then the pixel green screen fella, and then a bunch of fellas who don't really care that much, right? So I understand. I understand that team. I see what's going on with them. Um, and yeah, so the play dies, just is dead, which means that eventually we end up having the pieces, of which I think there's 9, end up getting dispersed all around, and it's down to the teams to find them. So the food blockers end up having the idea of going to the north because I don't know. That's not. I thought because if you crash here, you go north. No, hold on. The point of the challenge that the pieces they're supposed to be dispersed everywhere, not just the not. They don't all just go together. They're not in unity. They spread out. No, like they go different places. But I guess they go north, and it does end up that they're somehow fucking correct. Every single piece went north, which is fucking crazy. Blender ends up using a little machine to technically sneak in, and then they decide to follow to the forest. Which, again, I thought they were going to do the opposite, because it's like, okay, the plate species have spread all around, we must look all around. So the idea would be smart, right? If you could send some people north to try to intercept findings from them, but send people south as well, because then you can go search for other pieces. Because there's no way you craft something in the way that every single piece goes in the same bloody direction. That's not how that works. But apparently it is now. Every single fella goes in the same way, which is crazy. Then we end up having a montage of how certain people end up decide how they're finding stuff in the forest with stuff. Some of them catch them with the bugs and stuff and various different methods, like using the magnifying glass, digging, doing a lot of stuff, and then it ends up that they happen to have 4 and also 4 on the other team, which is yeah. It is something, all right. They end up fighting over the last piece, which like everybody grabs at the same time, always. Choco finds it, celebrates with it until eventually Camera throws it, and somehow it just so happens to conveniently land perfectly on the pizza fella that was walking around. So that means that team, because they had the camera, is safe, which means a team blank with all of their 8 members minus 1 ends up being up for elimination. Writing of this episode, in my opinion, suffers a little bit from convenientness. Like, I understand that it's good it's good writing in the sense that when it happens organically. However, in this case, it's like, oh, okay. So we're doing a challenge, and it just so happens that both teams are perfectly equal on the dot with the amount of stuff that they found, to the point where they even find and touch the last plate piece at the same time. Twice does that happen, and everything is like, no, that's too neutral. Like, I understand, but it's like, why that would be cool, but it's, I think, a bit too like wishful thinking that that would ever happen realistically. And I understand that, like, this is an object show, it's not realistic, okay, but I do think, like, it's not realistic in the way that things happen, but I think, like, the fact that things happen should still remain realistic with an object show, right? That's supposed to be a reality show. Some people are going to be better than others. These types of scenes are extremely rare, and having one happen immediately on episode 1 when there's so little happening tactically between the teams that it really doesn't feel like any team tried to outsmart another. It just kind of happens, and especially in a challenge like this that is so random because it's just finding shit, which I also don't think it's a great challenge, because these types of challenge ones got, in my opinion, kind of be icebreakers. Challenge 1, challenge 2, challenge 3 got to be icebreaker challenges, got to have a lot of interaction, got to have a lot of stuff happening, because otherwise the characters won't get to know each other. But in this challenge, it doesn't really get to do that, because you just kind of go look. There's not much strategizing that you can do. I don't know, you look in this bush, I look in that one, right? So it's not it's like, it's an okay challenge, but it's not amazing. Most of it, in fact, gets skipped for the sake of a 30-second montage, right? So I think that says enough. And then, yeah, but that's my criticism. I think that the writing is a little bit too wishful. It's a little bit too, oh, it's a perfect universe where every challenge is hype. Like, it doesn't need to be. If somebody is just worse, they're worse, and let them be worse. Like, they're not gonna be perfectly even. Anyways, in terms of the elimination, we have a vote to save, which could either be an amazing strength or an amazing weakness. Because, as I previously said, this show has an amazing cast. The cast of this show is absolutely excellent. In the way that everybody immediately, you can attach yourself to them, which does benefit itself to vote to save, because immediately right here you can already start to see the characters that you enjoy. Oh yeah, I really like Blender's attitude. Oh yeah, I really like Choco's attitude. Oh yeah, I really like the way that Timothy speaks, or the freaking stick figure. Are you called Jeremy or Timothy? Sure. And like, that's all cool, but it's gonna be a little bit more complicated for certain other situations, especially, if you have like a teapot situation where you end up kind of having fan favorites that just survive anyways, kind of like somebody like Grassy, usually in teapot, like, just kind of coast by without really needing to do much because they're just fan favorites, and any interaction that they do is cute enough and people go, oh, and then they always coast by. So there's a little bit of a risk that it could happen on this show, because the characters, they give themselves room to fanboy. However, I think use that strength right here, because sure, especially now that there's a big cast, I'd maybe recommend, if there's bigger audience later, to switch to vote to eliminate. But in this case right now, sure, let people get attached to the characters, let people want them to stay rather than want to eliminate them, and we'll get fans of characters, then we'll get fan art and all the good stuff. Everything's gonna be great. My prediction on elimination: Banana Slice. I really don't. Generally, out of these characters, Banana Slice is the only one that didn't really strike me with any type of chord. They just were not that interesting. I didn't catch much of them. I originally didn't even understand the word banana slips. That's just my bad. So my prediction would be that they would get the least votes to save, to be honest. Because, like, Polite probably survived out of pity, because people are like, oh, come on, what are you doing? Blender has a don't care attitude, but isn't mean. It's a roughly. So that's fine. The blank book and the Choco, I think that they make a cute dynamic, so I kind of like them. And then there's the Timothy and the green screen cube, which I do think would be more at risk, because they didn't do that much either. But I do think that they're unique enough that certain people want them to stay. But I think the banana slice isn't very unique, doesn't have a very unique personality, and isn't doing that much right now. So that would probably be my prediction. No post-credit scene. We just have it. So there you have it. That was BFAH 1, which I've discussed for way too long. But the absolute TLDR is cast is amazing. Show's animated quite well as well. I have absolutely zero complaints on that aspect. However, I do think that the writing is too picture perfect. It's like, because when a writing is too picture perfect, I think it almost gets boring a little bit. It's like, oh, wonder who's gonna win. When instead it's gonna be like, oh no, they're gonna tie and there's gonna be a brawl at the end. It's gonna be epic, right? But like, it's epic in the way that it's predictable, and then it kind of stops being epic. It's only epic if it happens unpredictably, because that's what makes a hype moment hype. It's when it isn't necessarily going to happen, right? That's one of the things that makes a hype moment hype, right? When it doesn't happen all the time. So I'd maybe make some more one-sided wins in the future, but for one episode it's fine, and that's BFAH 1. Let's go next. The next publisher that we're going to be taking a look at is titled Blue. Blue released about 4 days ago, after a little bit of hype building around it with intros, trailers, a bunch of advertisements, and everything. And then we ended up getting episode 1 releasing 4 days ago. It's already built up 15,000 views. So, yeah. It is created by Object Show Studio, which is, I guess, a person. I'm sorry, it's kind of an interesting name. To have for one person. I have not heard of them before, because I have sometimes heard some of their II orchestral arrangements, because I do think orchestral arrangements are interesting, so I have heard some of them in the past. Of course, I did not know that they made object shows themselves. So let's watch Blue, episode 1, Whatever Lies Beneath You, and then we'll, talk about it, and then discuss everything that the show is. Let's go. Okay, then, I just watched Blue episode 1, so, alright, I mean, that immediately hits a punch. What a little beginning. Proper giving off vibes of musical notes, proper giving musical vibes here in the introduction about Titan, that immediately explains the subplot, where we are, how we are. However, it doesn't feel boring in any way. It says it in this way with the flashing text and everything. We have our research crew of 8. It gives all the necessary information. However, with this little orchestral piece that's absolutely fire, that is absolutely something that we're taking massive advantage of. I mean, look, I already knew that I was just doing the orchestral covers. I might drop one at the end of the video. If I do I cover one of them? I don't know. I might consider it. Probably not. But in general, this is taking absolutely a massive advantage of that skill. We're taking the skill of being able to either just have a bunch of orchestral covers made before, or just the capability of composing orchestral pieces, and we're just using it to absolutely bolster up the scenes that are important, and it just makes everything punch so much more, because music is such an unbelievably effective storytelling device that a lot of object shows they don't get to use, because they don't have music composers, right, that are able to directly make something fit for the scene. Not necessarily because they're not trying, right? But a lot of them either don't have it and have to use, pieces from BFB and all that stuff. But like, the capability of having a music that impacts the moment when it's playing is actually extremely important. And this show is going to absolutely use and overuse it, and I don't mind it one bit, because it is absolutely fire. It makes even the text saying Titan appearing on the screen look badass. It is a fire. But yeah, and just this, yeah, it's kind of crazy. So it's 2042. We're in a Titan mission, and these two characters. By the way, I'm gonna be absolutely horrendous at giving these names. Like, I'm gonna be so bad. But we have an ornament called Tracy, and some, I don't forget what is that, bro? That's like a bro. I do not know what that is. It's like a frame with like a rock on it. I don't even know. I think they're called. Are you called Noah? Or I don't, bro. No, I don't know. But basically, wait. I think you're called Noah, right? Wait. No, you're called Mark. Never mind. I do not know names. Never mind. The names are gonna be a disaster. I'm super sorry. But they have made a big mistake. They made a 10th out of 10 mistake, which is they're on this submarine thousands of meters under the ocean to try to find, life and whatever underwater. And they do find life. The problem is it goes in to the submarine. They let it in, which is it is apparently one of the first sightings that they have seen of these creatures, because in the meeting later they're describing it and people don't know what it looks like or anything, so they haven't observed the creature that they let in, which might just be like even worse. To be honest, it might be like a disastrous occurrence. So yeah, eventually we end up having the other members of the crew over in the cockpit. The main fella, Blade, is kind of the leader, captain, I guess, of the ship, of the crew, of anything. So we end up they end up being, sort of the coordinator. They're calling for meetings and stuff. Theo ends up which is sort of the more happier, light-hearted little fella. Love him. They are giving cheesy from my eye vibes as well. Ends up spraying the gas, which is gonna theoretically, possibly, take down the fella, because that makes sense, no? So yeah, we proceed to find out that eventually the monster goes and hides under a ventilation system because they have brains, which is not something that a lot of things do, but they do. We end up having a Melody, which I think is I don't even know. You look like orange juice, but you're like covered up, so I guess it doesn't spill. And eventually they're gonna be going to a meeting. They have this Ava, which is the sort of nonchalanty, kind of super honest lad. Then there's also Michael, which is the sort of more panicky, no, the sort of less socially aware, I guess, fella. And then there's Catherine. I don't really know how to necessarily say about it. I think Catherine's the nicer one. Catherine, by the way, what is going on with this air, bro? What is going on with this air? So we're telling. Hold on. Can you breathe this air or not? Because we're saying, oh yeah, this air is toast. You breathe it in one time, it's GG. And then Catherine just walks through the entirety of that part of the building, and it's completely fine. And it's like, hold on, is this air lethal or not? I thought this was lethal air that murdered every being on its way. And even the monster was supposed to be dead. But you're telling me that Catherine walking in there with no protection or nothing can just breathe in the air, and it's like, it's tougher than usual, sure, but it's not like murdering the air. What the hell? Like, bro, they are cooked if that's the air that they're using. Eventually they invite Mark and freaking blah blah blah. I already forgot the name. I am so bad. Whatever. No, you're not called Grace. What the hell are you called, bro? No, Tracy. Okay, you're called Tracy. Tracy ends up hearing the ventilation system shake, and she's not confident enough to say it because she did apparently maybe fuck up. Although she does eventually blame Mark for it. Either way, they both end up fucking up, which is interesting. Then the intro plays. It's a fire intro. However, this intro is gonna make me point out something a little bit interesting about this entirety of the episode. This episode feels a little odd to watch sometimes because it's not at the full frame rate. You'll notice it's not extremely smooth. And I don't know what it is, but I checked the nerd statistics here on YouTube, and it says that this video is 50 frames per second, which I don't remember if that matters, but 50 frames per second, not quite 60. So it could possibly feel a little bit, it's not jittery, it's just, it feels a little bit different than anything we've seen. It's not exactly an issue, and I'm pretty sure it's intentional, because otherwise, why not? However, I don't think I prefer it. I think, I prefer a buttery, smooth animation, but an animation that, takes up a little bit more jittery. It's not jittery. I don't know the word for when it's just less frames. But like, I think there's less frames to work with, which makes some of the smoother like movements and turns. And I think you can notice it, especially in this intro, in the way that the camera moves, right? Like you can tell kind of in the way that the camera moves that it's not perfectly smooth. Like, it feels like there could be those additional 10 frames. I'm not sure why that there wasn't, the decision was made to not to use 50 frames per second instead of 60 frames per second. However, I'm just gonna point it out. I would probably prefer 60, but like, whatever decision there was in this type of scenario, I would probably think that it makes sense. But I don't know what it is, the reasoning, but I would predict that the reasoning makes sense. Anyway, the intro is fire. You can tell. I'm not sure if the pieces themselves are unique. If like it's a like, is the OST for Blue an original OST, or is it, taken from other things? Because we saw that at the end of it, in the credits, we used an Epic the Musical orchestral arrangement, which of course is a musical, right? But so I don't know if the intro or the beginning or any of the pieces playing during the episode are unique necessarily, but if they're not unique, they're still absolutely taken maximum advantage of, especially in this intro. You can tell how the letters show up depending on the note and stuff. Like, it's timed extreme well in music. Music is fire, regardless of its origin, if it's the original, if it's whatever. It's just fire emoji. Okay. That is absolutely this person's standout talent, and I think more people should hire them. But let's keep it moving. So we have the intro. So now we have the other big question. What the hell happened? Okay, what the hell happened? So, when so they were somewhere over there. They were exploring or whatever. Okay, and maybe one of those submarine pods, right? Because you may go in a pod and then explore, then come back to the main ship. Okay, what they did, they forgot the entrance open or something. Either her or him, maybe Mark. Mark blames the entrance being no. Tracy blames the entrance being open on Mark, and Mark just absolutely blames everything on Tracy. He's like, "You're an airhead. You weren't paying attention. You're making mistakes." And directly to them, Tracy does admit it. Like, "Oh, I forgot. Oh, I wasn't aware." So, that does make me think that Tracy's responsible, and especially considering she's sweating when accusing Mark, and Mark immediately gets mega pissed, like, oh, mega pissed. I'm starting to imagine that Tracy just lied to try to get on the good books of Grace, because otherwise she would be capital C cooked. I like the word cooked. I think it's a good word to describe these fellas, because they are cooked. They will become a cooked dinner for the evil monster. So yeah, so it seems like the entrance was left open, which means that a monster got in, and it's like, fuck. Alright, I'm not sure how you can keep an entrance open when there's like water that's gonna arrive and everything, but the fish monster is capable of moving through land quickly. They're very strong, they're very capable, they can cut the power out, and all that stuff. So that just ends up being quite a complicated. Eva says the line of dreams, shut up, to Theo for like no reason. It's like the most reasonable thing that Theo said in the entire episode is the thing that gets Ava to tell them to shut up. Like, come on, they didn't make a joke. They were just honest. Breathe the gas in your toes. I mean, I guess they're not honest, because that's incorrect. Catherine breathed the gas and she's completely fine. But like, it's just, I whatever. So that's a mean line. Eventually the freaking lights get cut off. The lights come back on, and then we end up. Well, first of all, these fellas are so dumb. Like half of them, they don't know what's happening. Michael is a disaster. Theo is a disaster. Mark and Tracy are like a disaster. A combined disaster at getting anything done. So then there's like Grace, who's okay, Melody, who's okay, and then Ava doesn't care enough to get stuff done. So it's like 2 out of 8 is pretty bad out of people that have brains. The lights come back on. I've made Catherine as well, so okay, I made 3 of it. So then Ava and Michael end up being dead. Michael ends up being alive in the next room after shouting. By the way, they don't have very good survival instincts because, oh yeah, of course, when somebody screams at the top of their lungs in the other room, don't go help them. Instead, stand there and point and say, yo, what was that? I didn't know. That could be any melody. You know what that is. You know what shouting sounds like. Please. You've somehow made it to the space corporation that goes to Titan. You should have brain. Okay, how is this the crew they sent to Titan? I love them. You know, they're fun. It's a fun crew, right? But it's like, how the hell did they get there into this position? I feel like there was a misguidance of nominations because these people are kind of dumb. But oh well. Eventually, Michael ends up surviving the monsters, all extremely worried, and then Ava just gets absolutely torn to shreds. I mean, I think their eyes got like ripped out and everything. That is GG. That is dead. That is, you could not be more dead. No, yeah, that's no eyes. Jesus Christ. Um, and then the fish monster appears from the ceiling vent this time, and then the episode ends on a cliffhanger. Let's not go, but whatever. Look, it's that type of cliffhanger that immediately gives me vibes of okay, sure. I mean, this is the type of show that's gonna have cliffhangers. The cliffhanger that gets you interested in episode 2, because you know you want to see it, so it gets you hype about the show as well. You guys share about your friends, like, yo, what do you think is gonna happen? You think they're gonna survive? So I absolutely don't mind. I mean, of course, a little bit. Everybody's reaction, I think, to a cliffhanger goes something like, "Oh, dang it!" But like, it's also just, yeah, come on. It's a good idea, especially for these types of episode ones of shows, you know, get something to think about at the end of it, and then you know, everything goes well and goes better. So that is all cool. And then, well, of course, that is the end of the episode right after another little orchestral piece. I mean, you can just tell how well crafted it is to the music in the way that, like, the credits fade out into the post-credit scene, but you can tell that the music doesn't fade out because the actual scene itself is adapting to the music that was playing during the credit that continues on. It's just smart. It's just smart. It's just a good musical experience all throughout. And I have to absolutely commend it. And there we have it. That is Blue Episode 1. An absolute musical masterpiece in terms of just utilizing music in an episode. Effectively, these arrangements, these pieces, you know. It's a good episode. It takes advantage of strengths, basically. You know, if you have a skill, you have a strength, and you can try to use it to your best advantage to put yourself on the map. And that's what this fella does. What they can do very solid orchestral arrangements. They can do them quickly, they can do them well, they can do them efficiently, and they just have that music knowledge. And there we go, we're using that to our advantage here in this show, creating a unique piece that this person can deliver to the object show that many other people couldn't, because it's just a unique skill set, which is just, you know, very nice. The episode itself, I like the concept. You know, it's a non-competition. It's more just about, will they survive, will they not? It's kind of like a movie. It's giving me vibes of Murder Drones a little bit, because we're kind of in this dystopian era, but there are not too many people, and we're just trying to survive, kind of type deal. Even though the plots are completely different, but like, yeah, I am a fan of this. Where do I think it's gonna go? I mean, I don't really know where it's gonna go. I mean, in the immediate future, it's all dropping down. Theoretically, I mean, in the way that it's looking, it's of course looking very bad. But the the precedent is that something is gonna happen that's gonna, you know, make them not be all dead. I'm maybe guessing that the call that happens there in the post-credit scene of the fellas on Earth being like, yo, how do you think the mission's going? Is a call maybe from Grace or from one of the fellas going like, yo, we need assistance ASAP. Or something like that. You know, maybe there's a mechanism from Earth that can help them out, some sort of emergency system, any of that stuff. It's something that I'm potentially imagining. Maybe, I don't know how they would get out of their current predicament because they're also there. Michael's completely panicked. There's no way that they survive whatever it is. The other fellas, they haven't even seen the creature. The only people that have seen the creature are Tracy and freaking Mark. So I don't really know how they're gonna approach it because they don't really know much about it either. They just don't have time to really hide too much because the creature's right there. I mean, we saw that they did manage to hide in that one room, and it worked, but they have to get there at the very minimum before anything else. So it's like I don't know how they're gonna manage to get in and get lost. Like maybe they're gonna manage to escape just about, lock themselves in a room, call up for assistance on Earth, like, yo, we need ASAP. Two of us are dead. But it's like I don't really know how they're gonna be doing this otherwise, but I'm excited to find out. I'm absolutely excited to find out. I'm absolutely gonna be looking at other episodes of this because I mean it looks really good. It looks really good as a show. But yeah, really enjoyed this episode. It was a really nice watch. It was really fun. It's a nice cast of characters. You can immediately see their dynamics. It's a fun, lovable cast of sort of goofballs that somehow got themselves in an extremely important position, which happens to be a lot of these types of things. But yeah, the only thing that I maybe I don't know. I do think that if it would be possible to make it a buttery smooth, like 60 FPS, sort of clean up a little bit. I do personally, in my view of things, look better than the way it looks right now. However, that is just an opinion. Some people like, that more, that lesser frame rate. And also, it is very likely for a proper reason that it is like that. Okay? So I am going to point it out as one of the things that I'm going to critique. However, it's not necessarily a demand. All right? Okay. And the title is just very good. The title is very good. The show name is very good because Blue Water. Water is blue. Whatever lies beneath you, the ocean, the monster that was beneath you, and the ventilation, right? You're beneath the water, you're beneath the surface, you're beneath anything, right? Like, this is a great title. It's all good. It's all cool. Go watch it if you haven't. No, if you're here, you watch it. Go tell others to watch. Go recommend it. Okay, go be a recommender. No, go be like, yo, I just found this sick ass show where they're all gonna die. Let's go. um, so yeah, that's all I really got to say about it right now. We yapping. Let's move on to the next. Yeah, let's go to the next. And then the next show that we're going to be taking a look at is titled 3DS. All right, I'm not sure if it's like the cons. I'm not sure what it is. It is published on a channel called. Oh God. It is from a channel called Bro, how do you say this? I'm so sorry. What? ISANHWATANSO. ISANHWATANSO? Is that how you say it? Oh, I don't know how to say his name. I'm so sorry. Okay. Yeah. ISANHWATANSO, let's say that. They are a mysterious little channel from South Korea with two videos. One of which, well, is 3DS, and the other is a fan animation for 10 months ago. They don't have posts, they don't have a main page. It's just a videos tab. So I don't know what anything to expect here out of this. Let's go. Let's watch it. Let's talk about it. Let's do all of that stuff. Let's go. Okay, I have just watched 3DS 1, so very interesting little thing. So, yes, the show's Korean, which officially makes this the first ever foreign language show that we take a look at on Object Catchup, first of all. So, huge W. First ever foreign language show that we take a look at. There will be more, of course. Some of the biggest publishers out there are Russian. Even though I don't know what I'm gonna do about them. That's gonna be a debate for another day. But this is a Korean show, so a Korean official community does exist. They're mainly known for one of their big official shows, which is called KFC. KFC is the big one that exists, that is there. I think got an episode of 1 million views and all that jazz. So it's one of the big official shows. KFC, I think, counts in my opinion. one of the big dogs. So then, it spawns itself its own community. And this is 3DS. So we have ourselves a relatively tiny cast of like, how many? Two, three, six. There's like 7 or 8 people in there, to be honest. There's really not that many people. However, we end up having a relatively relaxed set of contestants, and this show is animated very interesting. Of course, that's the elephant in the room of the show. This show has a very unique animation style for an object show, because this takes in, those surrealist animations that were like popular a couple of years ago, where it's like stuff is sort of moving, not necessarily in relation to physics. It's more so just moving based on however it goes and all that jazz, right? And the environment is like super simplistic. Stuff's not lip synced really, and it's like it's all sort of, it makes it feel surreal. That's why it's surrealist, right? And this is something of that vibe, which, you know what, I am a little bit impressed isn't something that happens more in object shows, because it's it feels like a match in a way, right? Like, the type of humor of object shows is in a way having these types of randoms event happen. So having this being capable, like when a character wants to get up, they just freaking float up or whatever, right? Just completely disregarding like these things, it just ends up more interesting. So first let's introduce here our cast. I can't of course judge too much the voice acting because it's in Korean, right? So I can't judge the voice acting, I can't judge the lines too specifically, because it's, relatively like it's relatively not in my wheelhouse. I will say, from hearing the show, the music also helped amplify the surrealist experience of it, and the voice acting itself seemed pretty solid. The characters had different voices. They spoke with a good chunk of emotion and all that jazz. So those felt pretty good. So the first character that we hear is Screw. I don't know why you're called Screw. Absolutely don't know why you're called Screw. You did not give me vibes of Screw before I saw your name. Then you have a bottle cap. We have a Zoomy, which another character that I don't really know what that is. There's a window, which I really like how in the captions, which of course are in the show because they're needed for English viewers. The freaking just a literal window. Like, that's the question. That's the marker for when Windows talking, which I think is pretty fire. Then there's Gonji, which, yeah, again, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what that is. I should do research. Should I sort of search it up? Because I mean, if there are objects, I can search it up. Gonji is a Korean playground game that is traditionally. Okay, yeah, you are that shape. Okay, that makes sense. If I just search Zoomy, will that work? No, wait, hold on. What are you called? Uh, Hold on. Zoomy. Yeah, you're just called Zoomy. I mean, I don't know what it is, to be honest, because it's just like a square with a down arrow. But yeah, eventually, for some reason, Bottle Kappa is just training people. Just like, yeah, you gotta beat the game, beat the video game. We have those little fake 3D adverts that, those adverts from the games, but they're being failed by Screw here. So eventually they're all sad until they're like, yes, I can stop. And then eventually they break the computer. They try to fix it. It doesn't work. We have, yeah, like, I like the gags, like, of the item, like, especially the second time an item gets thrown at Gonyan, it freaking ragdolls itself completely, disregarding physics, and now there's a hammer attached to them, because it's like the second time they're fixing it. Like, the humor is very visual, so I think this show definitely benefits quite a lot. Like, even from an English viewer perspective, which is me, I am watching the show as an English speaker that doesn't speak Korean. I think that this show still lands because it's such a visual experience. Like, I think a lot of what I'm finding funny here is a visual element, which I think is quite cool. Although there are still lines that I absolutely really like. Ransomware is the host. They take over a computer. They're just a virus, as they say. So at least they're honest about it. And eventually they decide to host a game show, which is gonna be well, we don't know what the prize is because Gonji asks and then proceeds to retract it. Gonji gives off the vibes of that one person who's saying, Gonji's kind of like, okay, I see they're the one person. They're more relaxed than the rest of them. They're not necessarily going across the pack. The others are just kind of going in for the chaos, They're not really, very smart. So it doesn't look like a show that's going to have a lot of tactics into it. There's not really that much of a strategical mind in it. I really like the scenes when challenges are being explained or the voting screens and stuff, because they're just cutesy. They're like papery, and stuff. Eventually, for some reason, everybody just starts deciding what method of transport they're taking, whether it's a taxi or a subway or a metro. Like, hold on, you're in the middle of a grass field with no town, no urban area present. And somehow there's just a metro station in the middle of nowhere that leads you out to the middle of nowhere. It's like, oh, bro, what? How has that happened? How has that occurred? How has that happened? I don't know, but I guess it has, because there's not. I mean, wow, that's that is low key kind of crazy. So then we get to see that happen. But then it's there again. It helps the surrealist nature of it. The surrealist nature of it is absolutely enhanced because of these elements. Like it's just it's just cool. Then eventually they end up going in, and then we end up having the idea. So the screw alongside the Sumi end up deciding to go to the top of the mountain because, yeah, like you can see how they climb up, like it's crazy. Bottle Cap and Window invents the crazy idea of a dig into the mountain because it would be hidden within there. Which, I mean, it's not a good, okay, it's a good idea, but it's not a good idea because if you think about it, well, at least, okay, it depends what powers we're talking about, what power ransomware has. But if there's a completely free mountain that doesn't look like it's ever been dug, there wouldn't be anything in the middle of the mountain for, you to find, right? Because you would have noticed that somebody would have dug into it first, right? And ransomware, while a virus, isn't exactly, it's a computer virus, or not a world virus, right? So they wouldn't have probably managed to dig into the mountain, put something there, and then cover it all back up perfectly, right? So I don't think that would have been what happened. It's a bad plan, which means Bottle Cap, of course, goes with it. They end up drilling all the way to the center. Meanwhile, in the meantime, Onji is just sort of chilling, walking up along it, trying to see if they find anything. Jimmy really likes raisins for some reason. So they find a raisin. It's like, yep, that's a treasure. I don't know what a raisin is doing in there. I can absolutely assure you. Bro, the shot of freaking Screw getting hit by a raisin and just freaking slowly tumbling down. It's like, what is happening? Like, I don't know. This humor works well. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of the humor, but I think it works well for this show. I think that for an object show, it absolutely can work, and here it's working pretty stellarly. Eventually, Screw ends up landing on window, opening the window. What the hell's behind the window? We don't get to know. It glitches out a little bit, and then window just closes. Nope. I guess that's for another day. Window. So window is just like, are you okay? You should go check up. So then they proceed to get hospitalized live on the field. Like, bro, what in the world? So yeah. We end up having, oh yeah, my absolute favorite line of the episode, by the way, at least from the subtitles, is Windows saying, Screw, are you okay? Screw answers no, and then by autopilot, Windows says, that's a relief. That was hilarious. As soon as I read no, I was like, pff. No, as soon as I read that's a relief, I was like, pff. Like, I was like, bro, what the hell? That's such an unbelievable little interaction that fits the show so perfectly. I think that interaction describes the show. I think that little interaction right there, of sort of, it just feels kind of, it's surreal, right? Because like that's not how the interaction would usually go, but it's how it goes here, So yeah. Eventually, while just walking along, Gonji ends up finding actually, first, Window finds a bomb, an explosive that's just there. A bottle cap eventually comes in for a fight for it. So does Screw. Everybody's fighting for it, and eventually they all decide power of friendship, and they all eventually decide to share it, quote unquote. They're all gonna get there together and say that they found it together. Which is, I mean, they can do that. I mean, it's funny that as soon as immediately somebody mentions friendship, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna change my entire view because yeah. But again, it's surreal. It is surreal and it works. So yeah, Gonji ends up finding a little note, which they just gave it back and then they win. Yeah, Gonji winning this challenge makes sense. They're immediately striking me as sort of the non-chaos merchant because everybody else right now in this show, to be honest, is absolutely a nightmare. Like, they are so unbelievably, like, just chaos. They're chaos merchants, which means that Gonji, by just simply being relaxed and putting in the minimum amount of reason, can win these challenges. Because it's like, yeah, like Zumi's just going just extreme, not necessarily superstitious, but like, very convinced in her ways. Screw is just sort of going along with whatever. They're not really going to be making too many decisions on their own. They're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah. Bottle Cap is going to be that leader that's dumb. It's like, do that, this, now, go. And then there's like a freaking Window that's just coming up with the dumbest plans of all time, which means that, yeah, this is a tough cast in terms of just like who is worse in terms of technical ability to actually do well on the show. But look, again, they're fun, they're goofy, it's surreal. Love the voting screen, by the way. The way that they're actually just describing how to vote, excellent. I don't know why other shows don't do that, to be honest. I mean, that's just a good idea. They're directly putting in a little tutorial right there. Don't vote with typos. Vote like this, and then it all makes sense. It's translated in both languages. Everything's good. Everything's nice. And then we have the end of the show with the post-credit scene of Gonji taking a look at the reward. By the way, the note, which was the picture that kills you if you look at it 3 times. Gonji, of course, is gonna try that because curiosity takes over. I do believe they die or they fall asleep. I don't know. They either fall asleep or they die because it is nighttime, so I guess they could fall asleep, but they're probably dead. Which, oh well. I mean, I don't know if they have recovery center. Ransomware is not striking me as very strong right now, so I don't know how they would have a recovery center right now. Because, like, yeah, I don't know what ransomware is about, but they don't seem like a very powerful entity here, so it is kind of looking a little bit complicated. But that's 3DS. Yeah, I mean, considering how mysterious this challenge, no video, no about me, nothing. It's just like all this, like one T-pop fan animation with 10 views, no, one time from 10 months ago. It's a relatively very low-key YouTube upload, so it is giving me the vibes of maybe this is more popular elsewhere than on YouTube. Like maybe this made the rounds on a different social media platform, one that I haven't like personally seen it on, right? Because I don't know, it's just kind of, the video is very popular, but I haven't seen this really be spread around, so it got to be somewhere in the Korean side of the community, right? But I don't know. All I know is that the show is cool. Show is cool. Go watch it as well if you have it. You might have to read the text, but it's all worth it in the name of watching object shows. And it is officially my first ever romp in trying to properly discuss an object show in a different language. I hope I did pretty well. I think I did pretty good now. To be honest, I mean, I don't know how I'm going to discuss an object show in a different language that doesn't have subtitles. That will be a different, that's going to be a different situation. But one day we'll have to get to that. But for now, we have watched it. It was good. It was fun. It was nice. And yeah, my recommendations is nothing. Generally, I don't really have a recommendation for the show. Because it's already doing everything that it's doing pretty well. It's got the vision of having this sort of surrealist comedy in the way that things are like weirdly normal, except they're really not normal. Things are moving in an interesting way. The characters are doing things like, maybe I would make Ransomware a more active component because I want to see what ransomware is about. Like, okay, ransomware just randomly appeared and then there's a note in the mountain now, but you weren't there before to put that in there. How did you put that in there? What the hell did you do? Right? Like, that's the type of things that I'm maybe debating that I would maybe suggest the show. Like, I want to see what, like, ransomware is an authority figure, but based on who, what are they doing, what do they have that is extra additional authority? That is something that I want to know. But other than that, I mean, the show's doing everything the right way. Voice acted well, it's animated well, jokes are fun. At least the way they're translated. God, I can't tell you in the original language. Jokes are fun. The point is fun. It's just doing what it's trying to do very well. All right, so I see why it's made the rounds. Absolutely praise it. That's all I can really say about 3DS. I don't know. It's called 3DS. Why is it called 3DS? But I guess because it's a game, right? Like they're one of the game. Yeah, not this game. So yeah, okay, sure, 3DS. All right, let's go next segment. Next object catch-up logo gonna appear now. Okay, let's go. Then the final show that we're going to be taking a look at, it is going to be by one of the show creators that we have already covered before, because smiwey we originally covered a little while ago when we took a look at Safaz Run It Back, or Safaz Rib, I guess how you would say it, which was the season 1 remaster. We took a look at the first 2 episodes of that. However, now they have released episode 4 of the 3rd season of their new, not new if it's the 3rd season of their show 1MOS, BFT, or Battle for Time. I don't really know much about this. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really. But we're gonna be starting all the way at the beginning with Wondermoss episode 0, titled Introductions, uploaded 2 years ago. Let's see the journey from beginning to end. Going quickly, because I think it's a 1-minute object show. I'm presuming that's what 1MOS stands for. Going quick, going fast, let's go. There we have it, Introductions 1 Moss episode 0. So we have, I guess, a combination of every shape, but known as Shapey. And they ask a bunch of, shapes whether they want to participate. They don't respond, however, they just stare blankly, and I guess they will participate. One detail that I immediately find it interesting is it seems like not only the timeline within an episode is 1 minute, there's also 1 minute of break time between the episodes themselves, which theoretically means that there's 1 minute here, 1 minute break, 1 minute challenge, then 1 minute break, 1 minute challenge, 1 minute break, 1 minute challenge. And it does make a little bit of an interesting little situation. But other than that, there's literally nothing to this video. The microphone quality is kind of bad. It's 2 years ago. Let's go to episode 2, which is, equally as short. Backflips, go. There you have it, the first challenge as well, a backflip, apparently. So Shapey fella decides that speaks in such a slow voice. If you consider the challenge 19 seconds, he's like, "Good morning, my fellow contestant." Like, speaks so slow. I speak like 10 times faster than him. But either way, it's also good morning, which is interesting considering it's been 1 minute, apparently, according to episode 1. I don't know if it's true, but it's been 1 minute. The challenge is to do a backflip. Everybody proceeds to, of course, do a front flip instead. Very, very good job, everybody. But they are successfully counted as backflips despite not being a backflip. I'm gonna be honest, it was not a backflip, it was a front flip, but whatever. A rectangle doesn't do it, just stood there in silence the most, and they proceed to get eliminated. They even have a sad face drawn to them. That's how you know that they are truly sad. Well, the 1 down, a lot to go. Episode 2, order up. Alright, I just watched episode 2, bro. The delivery of these lines is crazy. This host says lines is such a crazy that you didn't get me a delicious snack, therefore you are eliminated because you did not get me a delicious snack. Like, such an interesting line delivery. I don't know if I've seen it many places. But we seem to be like in a one-shot camera, because like we didn't get to see them actually gather the food. One of them grabs like a grape, one of them grabs like some pie, and one of them just grabs a singular, very large peanut. So fair enough. But Diamond is gone, dude. So yeah, goodbye. I mean, if I'm thinking, if this is a 1 minute object show, use up your 1 minute. Why? It's a 1 minute object show that feels like a 12-second object show that's taking too long because the host talks slowly. Like why is it? Why is it so? Why it's so slow yet it's so fast? This is a dichotomy of an object show. Whatever. Episode 3, wall mounting. So in the last time that I was reviewing a show, like I would literally just review 3DS and I praised it for its surrealism. This show is almost trying to break its record of surrealism because it's just so surrealist in the way that this host speaks. You must climb this wall. If you do not climb this wall, you will have been eliminated for not climbing this wall. Like it's so and then all the characters are not speaking, they're just monotone. They either do it or they don't do it. In this case, Circle literally just levitates. Also, by the way, this is a very convenient little final twist. It's almost like those are the two most popular shapes. I guess they're the fan favorites, but square and circle is a final two. Those are suspicious if you ask me. I mean, look, do I consider this a little bit pointless? Maybe. Because like there's nothing happening, there's no interaction, there's no character whatever, but like it's just like a for fun thing. Like I'm gonna make a 1 second object show. Like okay, sure. Let's go to episode 4, which I don't even know it is. The end of an era. Go. Gonna be honest, I was really hoping that Circle would speak there at the end. So that's the finale of one. Like it would have been a cool scene. But so we have a finale, dude. I love how like this is definitely one take because you can hear like a random noise happening in the middle of the challenge as they're competing. Like you just know that somebody was like, okay, I'm gonna record a 1 minute object show. I'm gonna record a line, wait 40 physical seconds instead of just chopping it up. Now I'm gonna physically sit there and wait 40 seconds, and then I'm gonna say the challenge is over. But then you animate it too fast, so there's like a 10-second gap where nothing, literally nothing happens in the video because you're waiting for the audio to start speaking. Because the audio had no idea how to synchronize it with the animation, and the animation didn't know how to like go the speed of the audio, which is freaking it is hilarious. Anyway, Circle wins as the best shape, so good job. Good job, Circle. You end up winning a JPEG, or you get as the host would say, this JPEG. Good. So good job, Circle. I really hope you would have said something. It would have been cool if you were like, "Oh, hey, thanks." Just like I like it's the first line anyone ever said. But yeah. What I think of this for initial season of One Moss, I mean, I noticed that the episodes they do proceed to get quite a bit longer later, so I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how exactly this evolves. But as a season 1, it's kind of just goofy little thing made for no real reason, just because why not? I did notice that we're redesigned here the characters for this finale, so you can already see, the evolution. And Mary say, "Yo, what if I took this Joe thing and try to make it more real?" I don't know, but we're gonna be have to find out because we have One Moss SS as the next season, starting off with episode 1 titled "It's Called the Beginning." Let's go, bruh. I just watched episode 1 of Monmouth. Bro, they know way that you're gonna have a 1 minute object show with a 25-second long intro. I mean, I respect it. You wanna make a 1 minute object show actually a minute, but you don't wanna actually increase the length of any of what you're actually doing. Yeah, just make the exact same length of episode, but then add one intro that goes hilariously slowly. Like it actually, this intro scrolls so unbelievably slowly that you would think it is a joke, which it probably is. That is hilarious. Super Showdown. I'm low key mega surprised it isn't just called 1 minute object show second season. To be honest, that's what I thought I meant. Super Showdown. We end up having, because you can dance the jingle bells. Shapey eventually lets the blender, no, sorry, the jellyfish lamp join. Although it wasn't really in the question because the intro had already played. But oh well. We then have a marker, a cool coin, a diamond, an evil octagon, a circle, a clickbaity, a microwave, and Shapey just the host. So then the challenge is to do a backflip again, and the shape fellas end up not doing it and getting eliminated. I guess that's fair. We want to focus on some other fellas, but some other characters for the season. That makes sense. So eliminate the shape fellas early. Episode 2, so much value. Okay, that's episode 2. Oh yeah, that's fun. All right, so first we have our intro again, absolutely. But so the challenge is to retrieve this fella's metal balls, which exist now. They're there in the sky. Marco proceeds to yo, can I have them? And then he's like, sure. So then he just gives them to him, and then they win. It's pretty smart strategy. Can't lie, pretty smart strategy. Um, then here we have a vote now. However, that's actually to be fair, I actually like this. It's a fake out because then we switch over to a scene of a stick figure watching the show and going like, I'm gonna vote for clickbaity. So then they just end up getting out because of the singular vote from that one guy, which is fair. Either way, I do think they would have gotten out with a real vote anyways, because I'm not gonna lie, it's clickbaity. The arrow is literally pointing at themselves from the other sector. Like, come on. That's a match made in heaven for people to vote you and a vote to eliminate. That's rather bad. So, yeah, they get out. Goodbye. I'm sorry, Jellyfish Lamp, but you did not cook, as the kids say. You just didn't do it, you know? All right, episode 3 is called Hatred to the Color Blue. These thumbnails are great, by the way, which makes sense. I mean, it's a show of high level now, so you must give it high level then. But let's go. Episode 3, Hatred to the Color Blue. All right, so that's episode 3 of One Moss Black. One Moss SS is what I'm calling it. But if you were to just combine the letters, because you can't really exactly say a colon, you'll have to say One Moss. So yeah, love that name. So the cool coin is out because I guess it didn't do anything. So no Marker, however, to be fair, watch out for Marker. Marker trying to protect the bestie here, going like, hey, they didn't do anything. But then Shapey hits him with the Uno reverse card. They never lost a challenge. All right, challenge, don't be blue and round, which, oh my god, absolutely got him. Yeah, Marker is pissed at this, and to be fair, I would be too. It's a pretty cheap trick. I'm gonna say maybe, just maybe, you could have gone away with being like, well, think about it. It's more of a turquoise style color, and it's not really round. It's more, as you can see right there, it's more of a triangle in the middle. Like, you could have maybe bullshitted it, but like, okay, yeah. I mean, it's kind of an impossible little challenge for a cool coin to survive, especially if the host decides to not budge. But yeah, I appreciate Marker's best efforts to keep a pal around. I'm starting to like. That's the type of move that gets me to like the character. So good stuff. All right, episode 4 of One Moss got those moves. All right, that is episode 4 of One Moss. After our 25, I mean, actually, the intro's gotten shorter by like a second. Depending on the episode, the intro is longer or shorter, I guess. But the challenge is to do so, and then yep, Marker does a dance, Microwave does a dance, and well, Circle is doing a movement. They're not dancing, but they're not really dancing as much as the other ones are dancing. I mean, especially Microwave. Look at Microwave down. Microwave is absolutely going for it. Like, hell yeah! But yes, it's not looking good for Circle fans around the world. They did win last season, but as the Shapey said, who cares? For some reason, Marker, which is looking up pissed again, because they do not like Shapey. Hey, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you, girl. And she eventually ends up changing her look. Do we get to see why? Nope, we don't. We don't. Why would we? The next episode, theoretically the finale, right? Because there's just Marker and Microwave left. So, I mean, guess we got to find out what is happening in this episode. It's called the finale. That's like it's called the quote. It's called the finale. End quote. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's go. Okay, so that was a very interesting little thing. So, well, we have our classic little intro. However, this time the intro song doesn't actually stop. We end up keeping it going for the entire length of the episode, while Marker takes a step, takes a stance, against the host. Like, you're so reckless, you're so evil, They were so nice to their contestants last season. Their challenges have been so easy. First of all, the challenges were easy the other time as well. If I'm just gonna, like, I appreciate you taking a stand against hosts that are kind of unfair, but let's be correct here. You did a challenge to backflip here because your challenge was to backflip there. It's not exactly like we're breaking new ground here, but like, I mean, I guess it was easier than not, but like, I guess it was easier this time because like the challenge of climbing the wall, I guess, had an element of skill attached to it. No challenge here has an element attached to it. I guess dancing technically did, because like Circle got out while still dancing, which means that they danced worse than the rest. But like, in general, it's still not really such a situation that matters. But eventually, after dissing them, Shapey just eliminates Marker. Marker just says, "You suck." And then, good job. Microwave ends up winning by doing absolutely nothing. Literally, like, they don't really do anything except dancing that one time. Dancing! They claim their money and will walk away. Stay tuned for season 3. However, interesting enough, this is not the final episode of One More because there's another episode 6, of One More SSC, which I don't know what that means, but I mean, I guess we gotta look at it. Let's see if Marker can get revenge. What the hell's going on? I don't know. We're gonna have to find out. But there was more. Let's go. Alright, so that is this episode. Well, the final true episode of season 2. So we end up finding out that Marker ends up getting up into the evil box in the middle of the sky, where everybody else has just been chilling and stuck. They don't really know how to open it, but they are trying it. We get to hear Circle, which is crazy. That's treated as this completely nonchalant thing. I mean, we got to hear the GOAT themselves speak. OMG. But eventually we had to find out that, the way to leave is to open just the hatchet again. I do find it a little bit interesting how, like, for some reason, nobody has ever tried to get out when it was open for somebody else to get in. I mean, I guess it wasn't open for a very long time, but somebody could have just tried fucking diving, just like going head first, like, yo. But no, but none of them have tried that. But eventually, somehow, I guess Marker, I think, just friggin' slams their fist or their foot directly on there, and manages to break the hatchet, which opens, and then everybody drops down to the ground. Everybody's fine, I guess, except Cool Coin. I mean, Cool Coin's struggling a little bit, but they end up fine. Then an absolutely fire little screen transition that shows the environment tweaking around them, as there's going to be like a real environment, and then boom, transition into the next season. There's going to be an environment now. It's going to be better. It's going to be everything. It's going to be a lot of things. It's going to be cool. And I am officially #hyped. I am convinced. I am all of the things. It's going to be good. It's going to be cool. Time to head into it. It's the latest season, the one that, of course, where it had its episode release. Its episodes are way longer than these. The first episode of One Moss BFT, or 1 Minute Object Show, Battle for Time, is titled Cold to the Touch. Let's go. Hello, I have just watched One Moss Battle for Time, Cold to the Touch. So, we of course have a massive style change, have environments, we have characters speaking, not something that always happened. And they were just living a life. They have a recovery pencil that, recovers them. And then we start to get introduced to our characters. So who are our characters for the season? We have a chocolate bar, talking, getting along with this carrot girl fella, which, yeah, they seem to be relatively, I guess, more relaxed. But apparently, I don't know, Chocolate Bar might have murdered a CD and done something, because CD's not happy about. I mean, they're currently dead, so CD's not happy. CD is, yeah, Then here we got Adobe Flash, or I guess just Flash. They are sort of the risk averse character. They're kind of like, a character that's like kind of like a police officer. There's always a bunch of characters like, don't do danger, and yeah, this is like one of those. This is where they're just trying to stop death. They're just like, oh, dude, like, so I'm gonna keep an eye because you're gonna do things. So that's the type of character that Flash is. Then we got a whiteboard. We don't really get to see much of a whiteboard, but I just already love it as a concept. They can like phase their eyes in and out when somebody's using the whiteboard. Like it's great. Then there's the 4 ball, which is not an 8 ball. It's a 4 ball. It's not colored like the 4 ball in the actual pool. No, it's like an 8 ball before. They're just like 8 ball. They kind of don't care. Then there's Chalk, which seems to be the more sort of, they seem to be a more curious style character. They're giving me vibes of like Pen. They're giving me vibes of Pen, to be honest. Then we've got Door, and the Sign. They're just they're relatively chill. I don't think they got it. There's Monk, that's just kind of crazy, haha type character. Then there's the Stop Sign, that is honestly like the most reasonable guy in here. Eventually, sounding an air horn is the coffee mug to troll, but that air horn ends up being the loudest air horn in human history because it takes us to a very cool shot of space, by the way, hilariously cool. And Shapey from space hears it and decides to get back down. I mean, I don't know if they actually heard it or if they were just going to do that anyways, but they do end up doing that. And then they decide to host a competition after brutally murdering a sign. Yay! Oh yeah, there's also I Hate You as a character that was dead. They just say I hate. They're like the main character, literally a square JPEG of Fanny, and they say I hate you and stuff. So fair enough. Then they play the game. The prize is a time itself. Cool shot of them saying time. Glad to know that there's a prize that's better than $20. That's kind of the thing about this that of course isn't very explained yet. Is that like, okay, you're doing this show, right? And you're doing a season 3 of the show that's very high effort. It's like comparatively to the other speakers, it's very high effort, it's very high production quality, it's all the good stuff, right? It's more like a proper Obby show. Problem. That's like the problem is that this is a season 3, which means that the other seasons are directly related. So how is it that we have a Shapey now that is got proper prizes, got proper challenges, got proper, just things in general? They're more directly mean because they didn't really do murder the other time. They were just kind of like, you are eliminated. Right? But like now, they are just directly, they seem meaner. They actually make up a challenge. Like literally, the challenge explanation for the freeze tag challenge, right? It literally just takes longer than the challenges did in the entirety of the last season. You know? Like, just to explain freeze tag takes longer, which just kind of gets me thinking. Like, all right, I mean, it's cool that there's actual challenges and actual things, and the intro's cool as a BFB fake out, but it's like, why? Like, of course, why has this happened? What is the change of heart? We're going to need to find out. I'm hoping we get to find out, of course. I think we will. It's in episode 1. However, like, we need to find out. And also, what happened to the fellas? What happened to the fellas? The fellas from the last video that we were following their journey when they got back down. I don't know. That's also something that I want to discover. So yeah, like, I'm not saying I don't like this cast is cool. It's just what happened to the other cast as well. But yeah. CD is the sort of death obsessed character. There's always one of them in all of our shows as well. But they're more so just very revengeful. Like, yippee, you're gonna die because you did something bad to me, or whatever. But yeah. Then we have the team. Team 1's called I Hate You because the fella just came in and said I hate you. The second team said wait, what's going on? Because Chalk said it. And then the third team is called the Silly Billies. This team is like the only one that doesn't get themselves invaded by somebody else saying random words. We just get to hear CD just talk, and then that's the team, the Silly Billies. And then freeze tag. Do you know that that's what freeze tag is? Well, it's time for freeze tag. So each team decides to take their differing approach to the challenges here. So the idea here is that apparently we have to hold on, bro. So wait, what? Then we'll have to stay together. Then we can unfreeze each other. Oh yeah, that's the thing. But all right. So they decide to stick together. The other teams decide to go split so that you can't find all of us at once. And then I don't even know what the other team did. I'm gonna be absolutely for real. To be honest, I don't know what one of the teams did. Wait, what did the third team do? Oh no, yeah, the third team's attack. What, bro? I am dumb. The third team's the freezers. Um, Me personally, I definitely going with the idea of the the I Hate You team because I think for tag in general, my opinion, distance is key. Like you can hide nearby, but if they find you, it's a very risky gamble, right? Because if they go past you, it's very unlikely they're gonna come back for a while. However, if they find you, it's over immediately, right? So in my opinion, the best way is to just get a lot of distance. So it's like, imagine, for example, you're just fucking blitzing it. You just go running at the speed of sound, right? You're just running super fast and maybe not even trying to hide or whatever. You're just running fast. For someone to catch you, they either have to split, like they either have to wait for you like wait like find you at the very end because they're searching all around, or they're gonna have to waste a lot of time catching up to you who is just blitzing it, and then they have to go back all the way to then tag other people. You see what I mean? That's why doing that is crazy, and especially if you have a team, imagine doing that in 4 different directions. Like that's so many, and especially if one person ends up just being faster, like imagine stop sign just faster than the cats are trying to chase him, then it's over. Like it is absolutely just an imperative little concept. So I would do that. Eventually the teams get found. It turns out that apparently this time in freeze tag you actually do flip and freeze up alive. The silly billies get all caught pretty badly. But hey, Chocolate Bar did a sacrifice and CD sacrifices in vain. I like this, by the way. I'm gonna talk about this because I like the fact that this team is up for Elam because this is the team with more screen time. This is the team with more screen time. This is the team that had the opening line. This is the team that had the main conflict be set up, be understood. And this is the team that you can most see, which means that in episode 1, you want to put the most screen time on the team that loses because you wanted to be able to make people understand the team that loses and the character lose. I'm actually a big fan of them being up for elimination. My prediction on who's getting eliminated is maybe okay. I really like Whiteboard as a concept, and I'd personally vote Whiteboard. But my prediction is Whiteboard gets eliminated because Whiteboard didn't really do that much, you know. Like there were some times they got drawn on, but other than that, they didn't really do that much. So like Chocolate Bar and CD have got their thing going on. They're kind of interesting, so they should be remaining. Flash showed up quite a bit. I guess they threw the challenge in a way by proposing the okay but not that good idea of staying together. Um, and Whiteboard just kind of didn't do anything. So I'm predicting Whiteboard, but I'm hoping for the best. Let's head into episode 2 now, which is titled The Worst Day of Flash's Life. Let's go. Alright, I've just watched episode 2 of One Moss BFT, The Worst Day of Flash's Life. So, first of all, we have, well, actually, Flash, for some reason, is trying to inspect the door. I like the joke. I'm bored. And then I like how the statement, I am bored, proceeds to always work at making something happen. It's like, I'm bored of being stuck in the ice, proceeds to get unstuck immediately, because that's how it works. I'm bored, I would like to continue the show. Okay, we shall continue the show immediately. Which, fair enough. If that works, then it works. Then we have ourselves an elimination here. A steak at cake. I like the joke of them getting interrupted. 32 votes. So, what an insane voting settlement. First of all, Whiteboard is so. Let's fucking go. This is a W voting. But other than that, I mean, insane little set of votes. I mean, if you think about it, is 9 votes for like, hold on, 9 votes for Flash in first place, and it's 8 for Whiteboard and Chocolate Bar. Then CD gets eliminated with 7. Ultra close little votes to saves. I'm surprised. I was personally expecting that, yes, CD was, of course, the mean character, quote unquote, but in a vote to save scenario, they can survive, when people just think that they're cool. But in this case, they didn't. Maybe, it was split with the chocolate bar, and then it ended up that they both kind of go near the bottom. So, fair enough. Goodbye, CD. You're just gone. You don't even, like, fly up in the sky or anything. You just leave, which is something. Then they all relax. I do like the detail that the night sky just looks like that. Because to be fair, the night sky is extremely pretty like that. I must admit, I am absolutely down for having a night sky with that, with those shapes and so and the way it shines. It's just cool. Like half the characters, I do find it interesting how like half the people just don't sleep. Like the entirety of the time lapse, some people just don't sleep. Like Flash is just staring. The door and the coffee maker are just staring as well. Like what? So, the challenge 1 minute and 30 seconds to inspect the room. You'll be given an alternate room, and then you have to spot the difference. Okay, yet again, a surprisingly little complex challenge for Mr. Do a Backflip guy to come up with. I'm just saying. So then the timer ends up starting to inspect it. I do like this challenge in a way because we are actively technically also capable of seeing the room. So when something changes, you can like we can also physically see it before they answer it. We can try to be like, oh yeah, which is fair. So then the stop sign team, the I hate you team, proceeds to have the idea of splitting up and going to find them. It's almost like this team has brains. In the team, stop sign is a strategical character who does strategy and stuff. There's like come up with a plan, and this guy actually comes up with a plan. It's not something that you see every day. A character that actually plays to win in one of these options shows. But that's what stop sign is doing, and that is absolutely getting them some good points on the board. Episode 1 wins them the challenge in a one-on-one. It's a one-on-one challenge because one of the team doesn't count, right? And in this challenge, has the correct strategy, split up, look at many places. You have a team, you have to take advantage of the team, right? So just look at each corner, so that way you can only focus on yourself. You can make like a mental picture of an area rather than have to just generally look. It's still good to generally look, but of course have like an extensive focus and then have a general focus as well around it. So yeah, that seems absolutely doing the smartest thing. Then they asked Chalk, which apparently is literally brainless. Like you can tell, I mean, how the top part of the Chalk is Ethan, which does make the pen comparison that I gave a little bit rude, but apparently they're physically brainless. So then they proceed to go over and ask Chalk about it, which proceeds to make a little bit of a mess. Although, I mean, like, if you ask Chalk to make a plan, it's not like Chalk is like you literally cannot do anything as long as Chalk doesn't say words. Like, they could just walk around the rooms, Like, you don't just need to sit there looking at Chalk. Like, you could look around, I guess, form your own mental plan until there's a main plan. You don't necessarily have to just forcefully go with a main plan and then not do anything until that main plan is. So I kind of think that team did play a little bit dumb. Then Flash sort of just keeps trying to just say things. And if I'm not mistaken, the plant was wrong, I think. But it's nice to see Whiteboard actually talk and Whiteboard, using the drawings within them, like this little goofy little smiley face. I like Whiteboard. Whiteboard's a cool character concept. I do enjoy it. Flash eventually calls out a speck of dust on the painting, which was it there before? I don't know if it was there before, but whether it was there or wasn't there, it wasn't there. Either way, it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's technically different, but that's like saying, oh yeah, the atoms of the room have changed. Like, okay, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. So I see why it got caught out, even though it's one of those technically correct things where it's like, okay, sure, you could have allowed it, but I mean, nah, that's just not reasonable. Then we have stop sign who immediately spots it. To be fair, that one's pretty easy. Like they have a good plan, which allows them to, of course, inspect everything pretty well. But the difference on theirs was just a massive squibble, so it was pretty easy. Like it wasn't a very well designed squibble. For some reason, there's a bunch of I hate you clones just chilling there with Leafy and Fries and stuff with each character. Chalk thinks that it's the plant. It's not the plant. So they're just trying to take a wild guess. They don't even get time to take a wild guess, the Chalk team, because they eventually realize that the plant, because it's the thing. It's kind of funny because, yeah, the plant was, of course, the first thing the Flash pointed out, and then it turns out there's not. So it's like, oh. And then it turns out that it is, and it's like, yeah. The difference was just the couch. The couch, you couldn't sit properly on the couch, so yeah, that team ends up going up for Elim. So, door, chalk, coffee mug, and flipping this guy, four ball. So first of all, coffee mug was pretty absent in the channel. They didn't really try much. Like they at least Door and four ball were discussing the fact that they had a bad plan. Basically, like Coffee Mug didn't do any of that. Coffee Mug kind of just didn't do anything in general, which kind of definitely hurt them a little bit. So in terms of its elimination, I mean, it's a vote to save. If it was a vote to eliminate, Chalk obviously goes out immediately. Goodbye, because they threw the challenge completely. I mean, yes, they were put on the spot by the other fellas. I think by Door, to be like, hey, think of a plan. But Chalk didn't come up with a plan, came up with a plan too late, and then threw by saying the same thing twice. Like I think it's one step too dumb to where they should be eliminated. Will they get eliminated? I don't know. There's kind of the I feel bad for them syndrome. So I'm gonna predict in this vote to save, which I am worse at predicting vote to saves by a margin. I'm predicting Coffee Mug gets eliminated because I don't think Coffee Mug did a lot. I don't know why people want to save him that much. Maybe four ball would also have a chance of being eliminated because they are kind of an 8-ball clone. Which of course people don't really like, but also the adorable end scene of the cat. Lovely, the adorable end scene of the cat being drawn by the whiteboard. The whiteboards are just it's not like they're not doing it for anyone, like they're not doing it for anyone. There's nobody there. They're just drawing it for themselves. The cute little cat, and it's like, oh, that's adorable. Like there's nobody there. Like we're not trying to show it to anybody. They're just doing it for fun, which is nice. All right. Let's see if Stop Sign's brigade of just being by a country mile the strongest team is going to continue with episode 3 titled Imitation. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. There we go. I said it correctly. Let's go. Hello, it's officially late night eternal talking. I've just finished watching episode 3 of Battle for Time at a late time. So, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So, for the first time, we have an episode that isn't actually that long. It's shorter than the 7 minutes of the other ones. We have shortened ourselves down to 5, and the next one's going to be even shorter, which I think is interesting. So, we get. First of all, we discovered the fact that if you believe anything is possible, so four-ball tries to print money. Does it work? No. I mean, it does, but they get arrested because printing money is illegal. So they get TP'd to jail, which is fun. Then we have the hit series Steak a Cake, where they're getting less votes than last time, but we ended up getting still more, I think, more people with 8 votes than last time, because we had a 3-way tie between everybody, between Door, Four Ball, and Chalk, who both got 8 votes each, which means that Coffee Mug with 3 significantly less gets out. Surprisingly enough, that's actually correct. Yeah, that makes sense. The other 3 were just sort of more present in the action. Coffee Mug was sort of absent, sort of abstained themselves that much from the discussion. So even though they were cool, I think that they just kind of didn't appear enough in the episode, and yeah, they suffered the consequences for that. So yeah. Apparently you literally get a steak if you're safe, and then I like how Door says, is that safe? Which is fun. Coffee Mug officially gets eliminated, gets absented from the universe. Four Ball is in jail. I guess they'll have to be bailed out later. So, the game is charades. One of you is an actor, and the other is picked as a guesser. And then if you guess it correctly, you're safe. Why is there a guesser? Why? I cannot understand this reasoning. Just have everybody be a guesser, no? Like, why does there have to be one person to be a guesser? Because it's like, it's kind of a dumb challenge. Because you're just giving up, like, the team. Like, like you're making it. There's no sort of strategic thing that you can do. At least when you have multiple minds, you can sort of bounce off ideas. Like, yo, maybe you're like this. Oh, no, no, no. But like that's too you big. You need to think small, right? Like you can bounce off ideas. It's not like having two people is gonna make chaos. Like it's not really gonna make chaos. It's gonna be better, you know. Like, but instead here, when you do it like this, it's like half the teams aren't present, so you just end up having two people always talking to each other, and then it just ends up being a little bit of a disaster, to be honest. But yeah, other than that, we end up having the first couple of teams. So Team Mr. I Hate You ends up having Stop Sign be the actor and Carrot be the guesser. I am gonna question how the hell this paper works if the prompt is literally written on the paper. Like, huh? So then it's like, how did you look and not say the prompt? How did that happen? Like it's crossed out until it's certainly not. This is a magical piece of paper right here. This is an omega piece of paper. So yeah, I mean, thankfully, whether it's by luck or by choice, Mr. I Hate You and the sign aren't present in this challenge. Not because they're bad, they're honestly perfectly suitable people. However, yeah, I mean, there's clearly two masterminds on this team that are absolutely making them demolish challenges, and it's these two. And in fact, they are yet again dominating the competition with this game of charades. Then Chalk ends up being the guesser, while Door is no Chalk, bro. Chalk is doing the pose. Guessing is Door. Okay. Um, Door ends up just saying a million things that have four legs, like a sofa, like a dog, like a cat. It's none of those. Apparently, I couldn't understand what Chalk said it was. It was hunch or something, but eventually it just doesn't get guessed in time before the other things. Unfortunately, Chalk misunderstood that. Game of charades, you can move. Like you don't necessarily have to stay perfectly still, which is interesting. Meanwhile, for Flash, it is apparently, well, actually, Chocolate Bar is guessing for Flash, but drowsy is the word, which is what a word. I feel like the difficulty level of these is very like different, to be honest, of these games of charades. Like there's cat, drowsy, and hunch. I'm gonna say it's hunch because I didn't understand any other word. It's like this is an interesting set of things. But yeah, unfortunately, Door gets it wrong, and that means that team is up for Elam again. There is an interesting little scene when Stop Sign is just sitting there acting like a kitten in like an interesting pose for sure, and Carrot is just staring at it. Carrot is just like, no, I'm gonna let him. I'm gonna let him chill like this, like the humiliation act. They're just staring intently. Eventually, they do guess that yeah, it's a cat. Um, but look, you know what? I'd maybe rub it in a little bit as well. Can't even lie. I understand what Kara's doing. I love that team. That team's so like just powerful. Like that team has the brains for it. But yeah, the themes are for Elam again. Door, Chalk, or this guy. Football. I don't know. It's so easy, but I keep saying it wrong. So in this vote to save, it's going to be interesting because, of course, they all tied last time. Ball isn't present in the challenge here. However, you can debatably say that you feel bad because at the beginning of the episode, they got sent to jail. So maybe they'll survive. Chalk yet again through the challenge, but they're just kind of a lovable little guy. They're just a little goofball. They don't know anything better about the world, right? So maybe they'll still survive. And Door desperately tried. Like, Door said a lot of correct things that could be what Chalk was saying. Like Door really did try. Door didn't put in a low effort. My opinion, I'm gonna say that Chalk is going. My opinion, Chalk is going, but I don't know, and I guess we'll have to find out in episode 4 here of my late night expedition into One Moss BFT. Today's very mediocre episode. Let's go. Okay, so that is episode 4, today's very mediocre episode. So, yeah, I mean, this episode just kind of gives me the vibe. I'm not even gonna lie. This episode is giving me the vibe of like, it's shorter because it feels like there's one scene missing from each section, to be honest. Like, it's kind of weird in a way, the way that, like, it's paced pretty fast, just comparatively speaking, because the first scene is immediately the one who spawns the host. There's no like chitter chatter before, like in all of the other episodes, right? And then we proceed to move on from the intro straight to the cake at flight, like to the steak at cake, which is like, I mean, I, like where's a scene in between those things, or like somebody, but like he arrives, it's like, hey, time for elimination or whatever, or like somebody goes, they call the people over, anything, just anything, just a scene, like it just feels like there's kind of a scene missing from each section, which sort of makes this episode extremely short. But I mean, the challenge isn't very long either, but either way, we end up having Chalk get eliminated. So I have been understanding the vote count is down 17. I mean, it's too late for me to tell you the vote because the voting was open for 4 days, because and this has now been 5 days since the episode release, so you can't vote anymore. However, I hope that people voted. Make this number go up. Come on, show's good. What are you doing? But however, we end up having a Chalk elimination at only 2 votes. We don't know how many the others got, but yeah. I got this correct. It was time for Chalk to go. Like, they threw one challenge. Oh, sure, my little baby. You throw twice, bro. you know? Then the challenge ends up being to draw 4-ball, and 4-ball will judge your ratings, which, I mean, yes, this is an immediately riggable challenge by 4-ball. Why would 4-ball not rank their own team badly? No, their own team well. Sorry, I said it the opposite. Why would they not rank their team very highly? And they even consider this option of just, rigging the votes. It makes significantly more sense. But anyways, the teams are drawing. We end up asking for Carrot to draw. Flash draws on one team, Carrot draws on the other, and then Door, as the only one left, ends up drawing on 4-ball's team. So Door ends up drawing, I'm gonna say it, a pretty good 4-ball. I mean, I understand that it's not like perfect proportions, perfect everything, but it's a good drawing. It's a good drawing, man. Like, that is solid, to be honest. Like, as far as like it goes with for match, like, it's not very professional, but it matches 4-ball, I'd say pretty darn well. So I personally agree with the 7 rating that gets given out here by Mr. 4-ball. To be honest, I think it's pretty accurate. I'd maybe even bump it up to 8. Because, like, if you think about it, 4-ball is a pretty simple character. You can't draw 4-ball that well, quote unquote, right? So I think it absolutely was a pretty elite attempt there by Door. Then Carrot draws the best thing ever made, which unfortunately we don't actually ever get to see. Because it gets crushed. And then Flash draws some goofy little 4-ball. I must say I'm a little bit disappointed by them, because they did genuinely draw very one-to-one shapey earlier, but then they draw a mirrored wrong with like too many limbs. The 4-ball here, it's not great with a credit on it. Like, yeah, it's kind of poor. I don't know why the whiteboard has a red and blue eyes, but eventually that gets a 3 from 4-ball. I'm gonna have to agree it is in fact a 3. 4-ball's honestly gives very fair ratings. And then the team of stop signs team, which I don't, what are you called? I don't remember. Oh, the I hate you team, ends up having their rating crushed before 4-ball can get to it, and then they're up for Elam. No. Oh man, what's sad about this is that I was just about to give this show praise because this team was doing well. I was about to give this show praise because I think in my opinion, this is a misconception, okay? Having one team be constantly safe, in my honest opinion, is not a writing error. It is not bad writing. In my opinion, if one team is provably just good, then they should win challenges. That is my absolute opinion. You know, like they should be better until something happens to the game that switches it up. Team swaps, any of that jazz that actively changes up the situation. But if a team is just genuinely good, or if on the flip side, if a team is just honestly sucks, let them be up for elimination, let them be safe. In my opinion. So I was honestly about to commend this episode for making this team say four times in a row, because yeah, this is an elite set of people. They coordinate really well. There's no chaos going on this team. They each have a bunch of talents. They're just kind of they're smart, but not like egotistical. They're just a good pairing of they're just good pairing and a good strong team that works well, right? So I was like, okay, they're going to be safe again because they've managed to draw a good drawing, and that's going to be better than a 3 out of 10 drawn by egotistical Flash. They're better than the other team. They're going to qualify. Fucking tree conveniently falls on them. Bruh. Okay, I mean, I'm hoping I Hate You gets eliminated because they are a little bit of, the lazier character. Like, for a moment in episode 2, if I'm not mistaken, we had the little interesting scene there with the other fellas coming in, like with the Leafy version, the other version. Like, some versions would be interesting, but it didn't draw much with I Hate You. But even then, Wooden Sign also didn't really do that much of interesting. I really hope that one of the two gets eliminated. I hope I Hate You gets eliminated, but I could see Wooden Sign getting eliminated. But other than that, I don't really know. Then we have a credit scene with some skull that gets taken by an eagle. I genuinely don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't, in my opinion, I would have made the good team stay, safe, in my opinion, because they were good, they're better, they should win. That's my personal opinion, However, I understand why you would make up a reason for them to go up for Elam, because it's like, okay, they've never been up for Elam. People are gonna go like, what the hell's going on? Favoritism or whatever. But it's come on, especially if you consider that the other team that was gonna go up for Elam also had only been up for Elam on episode 1, right? So they're now on a winning streak of the same size as this team, right? Because it's 3 in a row. So it's really not great. But look, I understand. I might be biased because I just genuinely like them as characters, but like, in my opinion, who's good should remain good. All right. But anyways, my opinion on the show. It's animated very well, by the way. It's animated very, very well. I must say, just like how I said with the freaking Run It Back season, which I watched, of course, a couple of weeks ago. It is just animated in this sort of style that's just cool. It's just a good style. It's pretty, I want to say pastel, but I don't think that's a correct word to describe what it is. But it gives me some solid vibes. The episodes are a little bit BFB inspired in the way that, I mean, like, you can see how the titles, other than the first one, I think, all from second to no, wait, sorry, hold on. Episode 3 actually isn't a title, but episode 2 was an inspired title from Teapot, and episode 4 was from BFB. And then the intro is BFB inspired. The environment itself is kind of BFB inspired because of the trees and the way that they are. They kind of give off the vibes. But in general, this show is solid. I like the cast. The cast is pretty alright. I do not think that they're writing the cast enough. I would have personally, I mean, I know it's easy to say for me. I would have stuck to the 7-minute episodes, I think that those additional 2 to 3 minutes can really help bolster up a character that's not that interesting, Like, for example, honestly, like, it can help out a character like Forball, like, if you give that extra minute to see them actually get bailed out of jail, that's all cool, right? Or then in the other team, we haven't really seen Whiteboard yet again. Whiteboard sort of disappears after episode 2. They don't really get to do that much. Same thing goes especially for Wooden Sign. Wooden Sign hasn't really done a damn thing. Like, they're just sort of chilling. you know, like the main focus of that team is being on soft side and carrot, but the other two should get it, and with those additional minutes, that would absolutely help. In the last episode, I pretty much understand it because like okay, sure, right? I mean, the challenge was hilariously basic because it just because half of the teams didn't get to compete in it, but like there's still you can have that be an opportunity. You don't have to be an opportunity. Have the people who are sitting out talk to each other, for example, and then we can form relation dynamics and weave in interesting things instead of having every character except like one or two in the show who are constantly talking to each other be one dimensional. You know, you can just have more dynamics and more ways to eventually push the show across with those additional minutes. I understand that it's a little bit of a stupid thing to say because I know that it's like, yo, can you just like spend an extra month working on an episode? It's like, okay, I understand, but that would be hard to do. But look, in a way, it's kind of that type of thing where it's like if you make a monster episode, one that kind of is the initial pace that I end up expecting for the rest of it, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, I think that if it is reasonably possible to use up those minutes to make a 7 minute episode again, it would give enough time to have interesting additional interactions with the characters that aren't that interesting, and then you end up having more interesting characters, and then just more good stuff all around, alright? Because animation is fine, music is fine, jokes are fine, plot lines are fine. I just think there needs to be a few more plot lines because there's just about like 2 total plot lines, and there's just I don't think it's enough, you know. It's not enough. Like we don't have time to evolve like half of these characters when they can, if they just get a couple of extra minutes of screen time, they could, you know. So I think that with that, everyone's gonna be good. But yeah, I think that's all I can really say about One Moss BFT. It was a fun, enjoyable experience. Was it better than Safaz Rib? Now that I think about it, I mean, it was because, of course, I got to see more about how a character dynamic would properly play out. Well, you know, in that show, we still only had 2 episodes, one of which was minuscule. So, like, in general, we couldn't properly get to see much more in this. Of course, we got to see how a character arc would be more likely to play out in a smiwey show, which I did enjoy personally, so I thought it was pretty cool. I will vibe with that, but yeah. So also, by the way, I would enjoy to eventually see what's going on with the fellas that, you know, fell down from the hatch. You know, because at the end of the day, that was the transition into this season, and now this season is cool with a whole new cast. But where's my old cast? I want to see them a little bit as well too. No, you know, like that'd be cool. That'd be fire. That'd be, you know, good stuff. So yeah, but that's all. Let's go do ourselves an outro. And there we have it. That was the final thing that we took a look at today, meaning that we can close off here late at night another episode of Object Catchup. No idea what hour this episode is going to be released. I'm cooked in the editing room. Let's go. But yeah, it was an enjoyable one. I'm just going to warn, having an Object Catchup tomorrow is going to be very, very tough to do because I'm going to be busy. So I'll inform in community posts if there's no Object Catchup. However, I'm just going to say it right now for anybody who is in this outro tomorrow. It's looking tough. If I can get one out, I absolutely will. It would probably be shorter. It would probably be like the minimum amount of things that I have to cover. But in general, I will try to keep it on the day. Like, go try, but I'm just kind of busy. You know, if I have the time, I'll do it. If I don't have the time, I won't do it because I wouldn't have the time, so I wouldn't have a choice. That makes sense? All right. But with that, thank you guys for watching this hit episode of Object Catchup. Remember to do the whole subscribing, liking, and sending the video to people who think you might find it interesting. That wasn't a correct sentence. That was all wrong. Alright, now that I've had my musical piece, see you next time, because for these shows, we're all caught up. Goodbye.